You know, the one thing that it reminds me of is that it's Joseph Mengele's stuff being carried out after, you know.
It really is.
He left off. Because
it really
that's
is.
exactly what he was doing. It's racist. It's immoral. It's egregious. There are no words. It's unacceptable.
It's all of that. I couldn't agree more with you. It's all of that, and I'm sure we're doing it now. I bet the modern version of it involves things that would really be horrific. Things like...
What are they putting in our water?
Genetics.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine the genetic experiments they're doing they have all these public ethical committees that look into what should and shouldn't be done. It's all baloney. In the private sector or the private government / sector, you know damn well they're doing these things. And,
you know, and yes, absolutely. And also, I wanted to ask a question about the Hanford story, about an explosion or something that happened at the Hanford nuclear plant.
There were 8, indeed, there was an explosion heard 30 miles away that did not, they're still saying, involve the release of any nuclear materials, but did flood, and 8 were taken to the hospital, apparently unhurt. Keyword apparently. So that's all we know right now.
Well, the thing is, after it was announced, I heard it on a newscast on your show. I looked for it the next day in newspapers, and I also, by the way, don't have a TV, so...
well, they don't like to advertise that kind of thing. I mean, it gets, you know, it's kind of thing, it gets on the news, and then as soon as they're able to, they drop it like a hot rod. I mean, rock.
There was nothing at all about it at all, but Miss Universe, you know.
Oh, what a beauty is she. What a beauty, Miss
I'm
USA.
Sure she is, but, you know, we could use some updates on Hanford, too, huh?
I gotta go.
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring a replay of Coast to Coast AM from May 16th, 1997.
Estimated to be if you had to guess.
Cloud level, you know, maybe
cloud level,
several thousand feet.
All right, that would mean that it would have been seen over a very wide area.
That's why I'm calling in. Is maybe someone in Middle Tennessee other than me has seen this.
All right.
I mean, I don't know what it was, and I hesitate to say, you know, a spaceship or man-made or whatever.
No, you've done just fine.
And I've seen something that I wish you could have seen it.
I wish I could have too, but I can do the next best thing. I can see if anybody else saw it, and I will do that for you. All right.
All right. I tried to get through to you back in April. I had there's been stuff going on here. I know I don't know if you recall. It was in relation to Easter Sunday night with some relatives that were down from Chicago, and I've seen this again tonight, and it's unbelievable.
All right, my friend.
So maybe someone else has seen it.
Look, we'll find out right now. Thank you. If anybody else in that area saw what this man saw, call now. The numbers you would use would be, I guess, east of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033, or the wildcard line, 702-727-1222. That sounds like a pretty serious sighting. From what he described, it almost sounds like the Star Trek, you know, something out of Star Trek when they would go into a warp drive, the way he described it. I should have asked him if that was roughly accurate. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi. Whoops, wait a minute. Didn't press the button. There we go. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, this is Juanita in Fresno.
Hello, Juanita.
Hi. Earlier you had mentioned placing different parts of animals in humans, and you may have, you might not have known, they've been using porcine valves for heart valve replacements in humans for 20 years or so.
I'm aware of that, yes. But suppose it becomes more massive. Suppose we begin using hearts, lungs.
Well, they used a baboon heart in a little baby. And then the man with the baby...
But the baby did not live, you'll recall.
About 17 days, I think. But...
Yeah, not long. Certainly not enough to know what we know about this 57-year-old lady.
Yeah. And then, of course, the man with AIDS, they replaced his blood totally with...
Baboon.
Was it baboon? I couldn't remember.
No, that's correct. And as far as I know...
He's still living.
That man is still alive.
Yeah.
And there would be obvious questions. But first of all, do you believe it's possible that the physical parts or blood of a person transferred to another could transfer some sort of genetic or holographic memory in those cells?
I wonder if it's that, or that the people have acquire an extrasensory, or already have an extrasensory perception that just becomes, shows up at that time.
I would tend to doubt that, and I would think that the theory, the holographic theory, works for me, and that is that you are in every part of you. In other words, all of your cells, all of your makeup contains the totality of you in some way, and that could be transferred.
Have you ever had a blood transfusion?
Never.
There's been a lot, I give my own blood to myself.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of people that won't take other people's blood, and Jehovah's Witness and a couple other religions.
Oh, yes.
Won't even take blood because apparently they believe there's something
a man
to this.
That's right.
The life is in the blood. And
that's right, ma'am. A man sent me back saying in Japan that they don't do organ transplants because they believe the soul is contained in the physical body.
I heard it slightly different, that in Japan they don't do it because their idea of dead is both brain and heart dead, where if you wait for the brain to die, the organs are dead by that time. And that's why the little girl came over.
Yeah, but the way I understand the harvesting of organs, aside from a horrible little 60 Minutes piece I saw not long ago, they're supposed to wait for brain death before they take any organs?
Not necessarily.
Well, I said they're supposed to.
It depends on if the person signed an organ donor card and whatnot. And there's things that can be given.
That you can't sign a card that says you can take my parts while I'm dead.
Well,
you can't do that,
there's
really.
different ways of determining death.
Well, now you're onto it. And it may have been that, according to the piece I saw, they have been a little hurried, shall we say, in some cases, in declaring clinical death in order to harvest absolutely fresh parts.
That could be true, but if the brain, if only the brain stem is functioning, there's no way of the life returning. And in those cases, they normally, there's no heart or anything else going. It's only kept going artificially. And I think we've always used for heart and breathing death, rather than brain death or organ transplants.
We're getting into some pretty dicey areas.
Yeah. I've heard several stories, but they were in like the Sun and things like that, of people who had transplants, and like some lady all of a sudden liking cigars and things like that.
Yeah.
But, I always sort of discounted those stories before.
Well, so have I. I'm not so sure now.
Yeah. I wonder, do you know anybody who had a pig valve or porcine valve replacement? Or
not personally, no.
I did, and I didn't like the lady, so I can't say whether. I didn't know her before, so I don't know if she had any.
You're not telling me that.
Change in. Well, she was very overweight.
That's disgusting.
But she did live another 10 or 15 years with it.
Did she tend to sort of, well, I hate to use the word.
Well, see, I don't know what she was like before.
Well, I was going to use the word wallow.
That,
yes? Yeah, really? Wallow?
But see, I don't know what she was
horrible.
like before. She may have been like that before.
Uh-huh.
So I was curious of whether, I can't remember hearing, for her, I knew for sure that what exactly she had done, and so I was curious of whether.
Well, look, if you were on your deathbed, on your deathbed, and you had an organ failing, and you could get a oinker organ, would you go for it?
Probably not, because...
Really? It's the only thing we've got available, ma'am. You're going to be dead inside of 24 hours unless you let us do this.
I probably would not have an option of that.
Well, I know, but I'm giving you that option right now.
I probably wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No, although I do know that porcine valves are, the closest thing.
Yeah, we're talking about an entire pig heart here. So.
The pig heart...
Is that a yes or no?
To ours, so
maybe.
No, I don't think I would.
No, you wouldn't.
Rather die.
All right. Well, I hear you. Thank you very much for the call. We're going to break here at the bottom of the hour. I'm Art Bell.
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from May 16th, 1997.
I know a lot more than I can say. Anyway, park that in the back of your head. The third part of the trilogy, the important one I've been waiting for, is... Well, I can't talk anymore about it. But I can tell you that much. It's on the way. All right, I have on my website now the second photograph, a worldwide exclusive, of the alleged interrogation of an alien creature at Area 51. It was sent to me this afternoon and placed on the website about an hour prior to broadcast time tonight. It is a remarkable photograph, and here is the facts. Art, I have printed that photo on your website and have looked at it as carefully as possible under gross magnification. The size of the alien's cranium is amazing. This is not the configuration that one would see in a human. Of course, the eyes are not only large, but note the significant symmetrical light reflex, the dot-like shine in each eye in response to the photo lighting source. The doctor, in quotes, appears to be demonstrating features of the mouth. If you look at the posture of both his hands and their position, it has a truly professional feel, in quotes, as well. If we could see the physician's face, particularly his eyes, I think we could get even more information. I don't know for sure, Art, given the limitations of this photo, but it looks real to me. Wow, what a picture. Yes, I know. And next week, Saturday at midnight Pacific, Victor, using a voice-changing device, is going to be here. And we're going to find out as much as we can. So we are actually privy now to 2 worldwide exclusives. One, of course, being the photograph that we have up there for you to look at now. And the other being the opportunity, even with a voice changer, to question Victor about what really happened in that interrogation room, about details. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, and I appreciate the opportunity to be doing this, and I'm trying to put together in my head exactly how I want to do it. I will treat Victor as I do all my guests, and I will allow Victor to tell his story as he wishes to tell it, and then you may be the judge of the veracity of what you hear. But I'm looking forward to that opportunity. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, Art. You
Hello.
know this partial birth abortion stuff?
Yeah.
Well, there was a mother and father was going to have their daughter at the thing, testify in Washington, D.C. there, or whatever.
What?
Was going to have their 5-year-and-a-half-year-old daughter.
They have a 5.5-year-old daughter, and what?
These people were going to, at the hearings of the partial birth abortion.
And the 5.5-year-old was going to testify to say what?
Well, she wasn't allowed in. Barbara Box had fixed it in such a way they said, well,
sir, hello.
Yeah?
What was she going to say?
Guess it isn't a show that she was healthy. She can, I guess, play computer games and stuff, what I heard. And she,
In other words, she was alive.
But she was supposed to have been
Aborted?
Partially birth aborted.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of the people in Washington, D.C. there, and I guess Barbara Boxer worked around and said, no, the fetus cannot be there. But how could she be a fetus at 5.5 years old?
Well, she's not a fetus at 5.5 years old. That's just stupid.
I know.
All right, well, that's dumb. She's not a fetus. So, I find that a little hard to swallow. I mean, a 5.5-year-old child is not a fetus. Period. My attitude on abortion is that if truly the mother's life is at risk, in other words, if proceeding with the birth at the last minute in an emergency situation, a true emergency, not a choice of convenience, because that's morally reprehensible, and it's the equivalent of murder. However, if at the very last moment there is a choice between the life of the child and the life of the mother, and there is a near certainty that to continue with that, I mean, I can only tell you what I would do in my own case, all right? If my wife was pregnant and the moment of birth was approaching and the doctor came to me and said, if we proceed, there's almost a certain chance your wife is going to die, I would say proceed with the abortion, assuming my wife at that point would be under some sort of general anesthetic or something, and I was the only one who could make the choice. To me, it would be a no-brainer. It sure wouldn't be easy, but that sure as hell would be my answer. I would not be prepared to lose my wife. Would you? Then the other side of the coin is the politics they play with it. And that is that give them an inch and they'll take a mile. And if we are aborting children at the last minute, sucking their brains out, the scissors business and all that, for convenience, or even more horribly because you don't like the sex or something else of that child, then it's murder. Otherwise, it's a life versus a life, like the scales of justice. You've got to make a choice, a horrible choice, and I hope to hell I never have to make it. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Yes, it is. Are you talking to this person?
I am, depending on who this person is.
Unusual. This person's Amos. I just heard you make a remark about...
Amos, would you turn your radio off?
Oh, where is it?
I don't know.
Hold on a minute.
You're there, I'm not.
It's pretty late.
I'll hold while you turn it off, Amos, at least for a moment here.
Yeah, I got it. Okay?
Okay.
I just wanted to tell you my background is medicine, and I followed this business quite well. And I think if you only had on the person that, well, I don't even mention him, but he's the Black Avenger had on one day about 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You would know for sure that the doctor alone makes the determination, and he makes it a long time before there's any danger. The people are lined up in rows for this thing. They do several. Every doctor does several of them in a day, and the people are in the 2 or 3 days ahead of time to get themselves opened up. And the way you do it,
okay, well, that's murder.
No, wait a minute. Yes, it is murder. Absolutely is murder.
I have no argument with you, but also, hold it, sir. There are times when there are last-minute emergencies.
Well,
God knows lots of women sir, lots of women have died in childbirth.
Well, yes, there are quite a few die in childbirth. Most of them because they're doing it without a doctor at all. As my mother did. How many of us? 7 out of 9. My mother had without a doctor, and I'm the first one. So
that doesn't bear on this question.
No, but what does bear on this question is that these partial births, you must know that the baby is healthy, its toes are twinkling and moving. The doctor turns it around and pulls it out.
Sir, I know what happens.
Only the face is inside the womb.
I know.
So I don't think there's any excuse for thinking the woman's life is in danger.
Oh, yes, there is.
I don't think there's 1 out of 1,000.
Well, if it's 1 out of 1,000,
you shouldn't have a doctor determine the other 999 they're going to be killed and murdered.
I don't disagree with you.
Oh, I'm glad you don't. Now that I have you, and it's the first time I've been able to reach you in almost 2 years, I dial sometimes for an hour and a half in a row. The phone rings, and then
I know.
The operator cuts it off, and
I know.
the whole thing.
I know.
But my background is in medicine and science, and in history in the last 15 years.
Yes.
I'm in my 84th year, and I'm very, very adamant about the great lie that's being promoted for 51 years now, that is, according to Dr. Henry Morris, the basis of all harmful philosophies and evil practices in the world today.
Which is what?
And that is this damnable, evil, bloody religion called science. I'm speaking of the pagan religion of evolutionism. There's not a stick of science to support it, not one tiny iota.
Okay.
On that, I'll stick now. I would like to be,
all right, sir.
I would like to offer to be on the program some night.
Well, you can offer. You can offer if you wish, but on the face of it, you're beginning with something that is simply not true. You can't say there's not one stick of science, one shred of scientific evidence that evolution is true. There's all kinds of evidence that evolution is true. I'm sorry. Your statement is simply totally inoperative. It may not be a conclusive done deal, but your statement that there's not one shred of evidence indicating that evolution is a fact is absolutely ridiculous. So there would be no argument with you. You're accepting that as a matter of conviction, like a religion. So there would be no arguing with you. And with regard to the abortion, I'll simply refer you to what I said a little while ago. Even if it's 1 in 1,000, if a doctor told me that to continue with a birth would kill my wife, I'm telling you right now, there would be no choice. I would say, save my wife. And if you or anybody else got in my way, you'd have immediate physical problems. Do you understand? So I don't begrudge you, sir, your belief system. But you try and get in the way of my wife's life, and yours won't be worth 2 cents, if you follow me. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
KQMS, Redding, California.
Well, good morning to you.
How come people think it's okay to talk about pagans like that?
Well, they can, look, this is open lines. They can say anything they want.
I know, but you don't hear people calling you up early just saying things like about black people like that. Sometimes they might.
Oh, yes, you do.
Sometimes they might. Well, even the Pope made fun of us.
Yeah.
Why do people think that's okay?
Because it's easy to pick on minorities, hon. That's why.
Well, it isn't okay, and it hurts my feelings.
Are you a pagan?
Yeah.
Define a pagan.
Well,
Yes?
a pagan is anybody who's not a Christian, number one.
Oh,
That's
come
according
on.
to their definition.
Oh, you mean the Christian definition?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's the way
don't
the
give
Pope
me
sees it.
the Christian definition. Give me your definition.
My definition?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I've never been asked that before.
I specialize in doing those things.
I noticed.
I mean, you're saying I'm a pagan.
Yeah.
Okay? So what's a pagan? What do you believe? What do you believe that causes you to say I'm a pagan? Forget the dictionary definition. Let's hear Ten's definition of what a pagan is. Somebody who has broken all 10 commandments?
No.
Somebody who does not believe there is a creator?
Oh, no. I believe
No?
in the goddess and the god. In fact, I think we're made in their image.
Somebody who worships idols?
What's an idol?
Oh, don't you remember idols? Don't you remember
Just a
when
statue?
Moses was up there getting the tablets and they were down there worshiping
Building
the
the golden
golden
calf.
idols? Yeah.
Could be. Uh-huh.
So do you worship a golden calf
Nope.
or another type of idol like that?
Nope. I don't worship.
How about the dollar bill?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I've got a little shrine for 100 here, you know.
Hey, I have the dollar bill or the $100 bill with your face on it right above here. I said, hey,
You know, I was wondering who did that. Somebody made up a dollar bill. with
you
my
look
face
pretty
on it.
good too. Hey, I just wanted to tell you, that guy who called or faxed in and said you're ugly and you shouldn't be on TV? I
Yeah,
thought that was
that's-
rude.
Oh, no, it's all right.
Well, I don't think you're ugly, and I still don't want to see you on TV.
Thank you.
I know.
That's good because I'm really swearing it off.
good.
I'll tell you what I've got.
I've hear you say that.
Really?
Yeah, I would
I'm
really.
swearing it off. That's it. I mean, that's it. And I'm getting offered TV programs and series now and all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to.
Oh, I bet. Well, no, I
I'm
did
gonna stop
enjoy.
it.
I enjoyed when you were on Dark Skies. That was kind of a neat little thing.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. But listen, I want to tell you to prove my point. I don't watch Larry King. Tell you anything?
You know
You
what?
know what I mean?
I watch Larry King about once a year.
Yeah. Well, I don't watch him at all.
Well, if he does something like on Area 51 or something like that, I'll watch that.
I think somebody videotaped that for me.
Yeah, see, there you are.
Can I say one more thing?
One more thing.
And then I'm going to go look up the definition of a pagan or figure one out. And
I wouldn't do that. I just stick with whatever you believe. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. About cynicism about the government, like you were talking about yesterday.
Oh, yes.
There's this really, I don't know, people have this really weird attitude. And it's my opinion that the government doesn't make the nation, the people make the nation.
I agree with you. Thank you. And it accounts for why it's one of the reasons that I have ceased to generally talk about things political. I mean, I will do it occasionally if there's a specific real reason to do it. But you know what? Most of what's being done in Washington right now is irrelevant to our lives. And I really mean that. I have come to believe that who is president is more or less irrelevant. They are arguing about things that are utterly irrelevant to us, mostly for the sake of arguing. I really have come to that personal conclusion. And I am not going to devote hours and hours of arguing about things that don't make a damn bit of difference one way or the other. And if that is what you want to hear, then you can hear it up and down the dial all across America, because talk radio seems devoted to the holy grail of discussion of things like Newt Gingrich's fine or whatever else happens to be going on in Washington. It's utterly without redeeming value. And if it should acquire some, I will again talk about it. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, this is Margie in California.
Hi, Margie.
Okay, the definition of a pagan is one that does not believe in the traditional Christian beliefs.
Margie, would you yell into your phone for us? I heard that. Somebody who does not believe in traditional Christian beliefs. Well, I wouldn't think of a Buddhist as a pagan.
But the Christians do.
Well, that's their problem.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned. In other words, I disagree with the definition.
Mhm.
To me, a pagan worships some sort of a golden calf, as a good example. And I think that God may be known by many names, and one of them may be Buddha, Mohammed. There may be many names for our Creator, not just one.
And what that woman should, what I believe the woman should say is that she's Wiccan.
Well, I don't think she is Wiccan.
Well, Wiccans do believe in the god and the goddess.
Well, maybe she is Wiccan. I'll tell you what I'll do. You're Wiccan?
Mm-hmm.
You are?
Mm-hmm.
You are?
Yes.
You're a witch.
Not in the Halloween tradition.
Well, let's not mince words here, but a Wiccan is a witch, yes?
Yes. And same way with, Wiccan is male or female, and witch is male or female.
Did you see The Craft?
I think I've seen the previews of it.
Uh-huh. How long have you been a Wiccan?
I was initiated about a year ago.
About a year ago.
Mm-hmm. I used to be.
Look, I have a break here. Can you hold on through the news?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hang in there. Just rest easy on your broom. And we'll get right back.
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring a replay of Coast to Coast AM from May 16th, 1997. Tonight featuring a replay of Coast to Coast AM from May 16th, 1997.
Good morning. It's Saturday morning. The weekend has arrived already. They really are moving. It is the quickest. They're moving faster, faster, faster. Weeks are racing by, months and the years. Nor me. I did it even before I did this all-night talk show. Okay, dismount the broom.
Yes. Do I ever dismount?
Can you can you tell me about the Wiccan religion? Is that proper?
Well, I don't know if you call it a religion.
What would you call it?
A belief.
Okay. Can you tell me about it?
Well, it's earth-orientated, and it's, well, I haven't been in it all that long to really be well-versed on it, but I feel that it's, you're honoring nature and life. And have you ever heard of the threefold law?
Threefold law?
Mm-hmm.
No, what is that?
Whatever you do.
Oh, comes back to you threefold.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I like to think of it as a tenfold, because
other people call it karma, whatever.
Yeah, you could say that. Let's see, if you can imagine doing something bad towards somebody and it coming back at you 10 times as strong,
mm-hmm.
You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
There have been moments.
But think of it, if you did something to someone else bad.
Uh-huh. I have in my life.
And you've paid for it later, right?
Well, you never know. I mean...
one way or another you have.
Well, you have... Yeah. The answer is yes. In other words, you pay for it, maybe not in things that occur to you, but your psyche is affected.
That, and also it could happen to you physically or financially or emotionally.
I don't disagree. But there may be times when it's worth it. That's the human part of me talking. In other words, I have been harmed by people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't stand for it. I harm back. Now, that's wrong, I know, turn the other cheek and all that stuff, but I don't live by that. I don't turn the other cheek. Well, I put my fist right back in their face. You hear me?
Yeah.
So
there's one time when...
So karma will get me, I'm sure.
To give an example, there's one time that some money was stolen out of my purse.
Mm-hmm.
This other person laughed about it. They lost 10 times as much out of their wallet at a swap meet.
Times 3.
Now, this one was 10 times.
They lost 10 times as much, you mean?
But see, the thing is that I didn't take part in that. I just said, okay, you'll pay for it sometime or another, And it happened the second time. The same person laughed about something that happened to me, and something worse happened to him. And I says, remember the time that you laughed about me about the money? And then this last time, don't do that anymore. You're hurting yourself.
Huh. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the call, and you call me again.
Mm-hmm.
Will you?
Well, this is actually my second time calling. The first time I called was after the Flight 800.
Oh, yes.
And you were talking to this one guy about remote viewing.
Yes.
And I called you up and told you that I tried that out of curiosity.
Yes, I recall.
Yeah, and you kind of came down.
Well, there's a times 3 rule with talk radio, too. By the time you call 3 times, we've got you.
Well, this one was the first time today.
Yeah, but I mean... collectively, you understand? All right, I got to run. Thank you very much for the call. From Dave in Ukiah, Dave says, Art, I have had an artificial heart valve made of titanium. I've had it for 1.5 years now, and now I've developed a taste for WD-40. That's an ugly thought, Dave. How do you take it, Dave? Do you squirt it or use one of the spray bottles and just sort of slosh it around in your mouth and swallow? To answer the question of the people in the chat room right now on AOL, yes, it is me. Every now and then I just pop in there. If you would like to join us, feel free. America Online. Go to keyword. You check keyword up there at the top. And just type in Art Bell, my name. It'll take you to a place called the Periscope area, and you just click on the Grassy Knoll chat room. The Grassy Knoll chat room. I've always thought that was a particularly intriguing name for a chat room, the Grassy Knoll. And I am in there presently. Every now and then I just pop in, you know, and whenever I do, there is an immediate great argument about whether it's really Art Bell or not. Yes, it's really me. So if you'd like to join us and you're on AOL, that's where you go. The way you get there is just keyword, just type in my name and then click on the Grassy Knoll chat room, and there you'll be. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
This is Phil from Little Rock, Arkansas.
How's everything in Little Rock this morning?
Oh, it's just great.
Good.
We in the Christian world kind of consider you a new age voice crying in the wilderness, or all the subjects that you talk about and everything are things that...
Actually, sir, you probably consider me to be the Antichrist.
No, sir.
No?
No, when we...
The devil's toe jam?
No. No, whenever we hear these things, you know...
Talk about.
Yeah, it says for us to look up for our redemption draweth nigh, that Jesus is coming, and that's what you call the quickening. That all the
it's entirely possible.
The things
in truth, you know, there are a lot of people who think I'm the devil himself.
Well,
I'm not,
I don't.
and I think it is equally possible that what I call the quickening will lead to the return of our Lord. And I don't rule that out, despite what a lot of people think. I think it's as possible as any of the other things we talk about.
Well, I believe that your program is one of the most necessary things in today's age. That the information that we're given, the subjects that are talked about.
Well, how refreshing! You mean you don't want me tarred and feathered and drawn and quartered and run out of town on a rail, or shot with a rail gun?
No, I think you should come on earlier in the night and stay on longer.
You do, huh?
Yes, sir. It's really refreshing and delightful. I've studied all the subjects that you talked about for 25 years now.
You really think I ought to come on early? I'll tell you what I want you to do, okay?
Okay.
All weekend long this weekend, let's try an experiment. I want you to concentrate as hard as you can on the idea of me coming on earlier.
Okay.
Okay? Can you promise me to try that?
I'll be praying about it.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. East of the Rockies, you are on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. Cindy in Kansas City.
Hello, Cindy.
You're already off the air here, but I've been dialing so long it's kind of become obsessive compulsive for me.
So you just keep dialing?
Yeah, I just keep dialing and keep dialing. Listen, you were talking about spontaneous combustion earlier.
Oh, yes.
Several years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I saw a special on television about this very subject. And a doctor went around and investigated all the known reported cases in the world.
Right.
At that time, and found that there was no class of people that this happened to primarily, or age group, or race, or anything like that.
No pattern. It just happens.
No pattern, but they found only one common denominator among all of them, was that they seem to eat a lot of shredded wheat for some reason.
Really? Shredded wheat?
Honestly, I swear.
I mean, I could understand it if they were ingesting lighter fluid, stuff like that. But, I mean, how does shredded wheat put you into flames? Especially if nobody can take shredded wheat without milk, right?
He didn't say. He just said that seemed to be the only thing that all the people had in common was the shredded wheat. And most of them ate a lot of it.
Huh.
This even happened to a 17-year-old schoolgirl walking home from school one day. She just burst into flames.
I don't want to believe that could occur.
Well, aren't you getting so big, 360-some affiliates now?
Yeah.
Good Lord, I've been trying to dial you for 2 hours. I've listened to you for 4 years, and I used to be able to get you every time.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people out there now. I really try real hard not to think about that, you know?
Oh, hey, listen, I ordered absolutely fresh flowers for my mother for Mother's Day.
Oh, did you?
Oh, she loved them.
Oh, well,
You got flowers for the neighbors, flowers for people at work.
it really is the deal.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you some other time. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling. Take care. I don't want to think about how big the show is getting. Hello, Art Bell. This is Dean from Venice. Are you familiar with the program content of ABC Nightline for Friday night? Yes, I am actually, Dean. This fax is to inform you of the topic for those of you that did not see it. I believe you'll find it interesting and hope you'll discuss it on your show. They covered alien life forms, mainly of microbiological and bacterial origin. They stated that a probe was sent to the moon before the Apollo mission. In that probe was a solar panel that an installation technician sneezed on. The bacteria left on the panel was launched to the moon. The probe stayed on the moon for 2 years in a zero-oxygen, highly radioactive environment. When the Apollo NASA mission retrieved the probe, they discovered the bacteria to be alive and active. Scientists are concerned that bringing soil samples back from Mars could contain microbial life forms that are not killed by the harsh environment of space. They spoke about the very real possibility that these life forms could have serious negative impact on Earth. If you have seen this Nightline segment, I would like to hear your opinion and ask you to open the topic for discussion. Yeah, sure. Dean, by the way, thank you for the facts, Dean. I think that's pretty good evidence that such a thing is indeed possible, and that if we bring back material objects, rocks, whatever, such a thing could occur. However, bear in mind that the Earth is constantly being bombarded by meteorites of various size, many of which do not burn up in the atmosphere, one of which we now know contains microbial life from Mars. So if that danger was real, then we should have already been infected by, and perhaps are infected by, and one day will be infected by something from somewhere else that doesn't quite burn up completely in the atmosphere. So I would think the risk of bringing back something from Mars would be no bigger than we experience as a general basis as meteorites re-enter and make it. Just my thought. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hey, Mel.
Hey there.
Hey, this is Joe from Mel's Hole, Washington.
There's no such town.
Yeah, well, you know Mel's Hole, right?
Of course.
I was the guy that called you about the hose reel, remember? Trying to reel up the fishing line.
The 80,000 feet of
monofilament.
monofilament.
80,000 feet of monofilament. Told you put it on a garden hose reel.
Yeah.
Now you know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, I just got in from the field, and I noticed you're talking about some pretty obscure stuff here.
I always do.
Well, I got a couple riddles for you. It was given to me by my father, and they seem pretty simple and pretty innocent enough, but maybe you want to dwell over them, and there might be somebody out there that can give you a better answer to them that I've come across.
Let me hear it. I generally don't like this kind of thing.
Okay. Dad, the first thing Dad told me was, how can you say you've been there if you've never been there before? That was one. I think my answer to it,
let me stop you right there. How can you say you've been there if you've never been there before?
Right.
Where is the riddle in that? That's just common sense.
It's just no. It's a thing. It was something to think about.
Why?
Well, I guess it means deja vu, maybe. See, and then the other one is.
Well, that's the answer to the riddle, deja vu.
I don't know.
What do you know?
Come up with?
Do you know what the definition of deja vu is?
You've been there before.
You feel that you have been there before,
right?
Even though you have not. So if that is a riddle, that is the answer.
Right, and that's what I thought it was.
All right. Well, let's hear. I'll hear one more from you.
Okay. The second one is,
Learn to see beyond the end of your nose, and you shall know the ways of life.
Grasshopper.
That's the second one.
Grasshopper.
Well, no, my dad was half Native Indian.
I see. All right. Well, that's something that would have been said to Grasshopper probably in one of the early grades. Right? Something about the nose. Sounds Chinese. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes. Good morning, Art.
Good morning.
This is my first attempt this morning to call you.
We'll see. Now, see, you get people on here that have been saying, I've been trying for a year and a half. And then you get somebody, of course, that's why we have the first time caller line.
Well, I will tell you, it's not without great diligence this morning. My name is Brian, and I'm calling from Friendswood, just near Houston.
All right.
And you have gone off the air, but I keep on trying. We pick you up at about 1 a.m., and we carry you until 4 a.m.
That seems reasonable.
It is. I wish you could be on longer.
I wish we could, too.
Even more so.
But, I mean, you know, radio stations have things they do.
Very true. Very true. As a matter of fact, I've done a little radio time myself on the West Coast.
It's sometimes like doing jail time, huh?
Very much so. Very much so. You have to stick to a schedule. Everyone does.
That's exactly right. And at the same time, every night the door closes.
Yes, it does. I've got three basic topics I would like to ask you real quick, each one being very short.
All right.
Number one, have you seen the latest issue of Popular Mechanics?
The movement of Area 51.
Correct.
I don't believe it. Next.
That's what I was going to ask you, whether it was information or disinformation.
I would say disinformation. That would be my take on it.
I read the article. It seemed rather apropos for this time.
Yeah, but see, they've annexed more land around what we know as Area 51.
Very much
and
so.
So why do that if you're going to move it? Next question.
Very much so. Your book, The Quickening.
Yes.
I was going to mention to you that it very much falls in line with the sign of the times.
Oh, I know.
I don't want to be biblical with you, but I guess...
that's all right. You can be, as long as it's not quoting Scripture.
Oh, well, I guess I can't then.
That's right, you can.
But it is very much like a woman in labor. You know how the...
Yes. Yeah, the first, actually, that's one definition of the quickening, is the first feeling or flutter of life.
Very much so. You have the pain becomes greater.
Yep.
And it becomes quicker.
Yeah, I didn't name it that lightly. Third topic?
And a third topic is Father Malachi. I heard earlier this evening a gentleman talking about Father Malachi.
That's right.
I listened to your program a few nights ago with Father Malachi on the show, and to my amazement, I have two jobs. I'm a screenwriter in the day, and I deliver papers at night.
And?
Don't ask me. That's very strange. I was listening to the program, and one of the stops that I made talked with me and said, did you know that Father Malachi is on? And I said, where have I heard that? I'm listening to it now, listening to Art Bell talking with this gentleman, and for the last half hour I've been trying to figure out, where have I heard Father Malachi before? Well, I just happened to be reading his book.
Oh, Windswept House?
Yes. No, sir. It is The Keys of This Blood.
Right, that's right.
One of his older books.
Yes. Sir, I'm going to have to cut out on you here.
Okay.
Bottom of the hour, thank you. And I will mention this just to the audience quickly. My book is going to be ready to ship out on Tuesday. You can still get a first edition, second printing copy of The Quickening. Still can get a signed copy, autographed copy. You can order right now, and they'll ship on Tuesday.
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to
Final segment. Can you believe it already? Here we go again. Anything goes east of the Rockies. You're on the air. And oh, by the way, good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you.
You was talking earlier about in 50 years what the president then would be apologizing for.
Well, first of all, let me first ask you, do you think it's probable that in another 50 years we will have to be apologizing for what we're doing today?
Probably.
Yeah, me too. All right, so what do you think?
The way it's going with cloning, it'll probably be the Clinton clone in 50 years.
You mean, well?
Yeah, they went back and got his DNA and cloned Clinton.
There's reason enough right there to get to, we need a law. Because, Clinton, good, bad, or whatever, has the ability, I think, to become endlessly reelected. And if they could clone him, that would mean a Clinton future for our grandchildren and their grandchildren, and on and on.
The living nightmare. But what I called about, you said you ought to have somebody talking, being with you when you talk to Victor.
Yeah. Well, yes.
What about the reverse speech guy? That way you know if Victor's telling the truth.
No, because he can't do it instantly. That's got to be a sort of a thing later. It takes time to review and then come back later. But I don't. You know, a good question. I wonder if they can do reverse speech with a voice changer.
That's what I was wondering when you started talking like it. But have you thought about that reverse speech guy doing the interview you had with the man that flew into
Area 51?
Yeah.
That'd be a winner. That'd be a winner. And I'll tell you what else I've had a lot of requests for: reverse speech analysis of the NASA guys.
Uh-oh. First from the Clinton clone to the NASA people telling the truth. I don't know if the world could take it.
Well, I've heard a number of reversals on President Clinton. And now that you've brought it up again, I say again, we must have a law. Thank you very much for the call. I mean, it's really too intense to even contemplate, even if you like President Clinton. Surely you wouldn't want an indefinite future with Clinton after Clinton after Clinton after Clinton. Hell, I couldn't even take that with George Bush. West of the Rockies? Whoops, no, you're not. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. This is Jerry in St. Louis, Missouri.
Hi, Jerry.
I thought about something that we were talking about earlier as far as the people, about people using other people's organs.
Yes.
Let's say somebody would put a serial killer or somebody's organs in. That's something to think about.
I thought about it myself, yeah. That'd be pretty awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I asked you once before, what's the name of the music you play on Dreamland?
It's called The O of Pleasure.
The O of Pleasure.
The O of Pleasure.
And who's the group or the person who plays?
I figured you'd ask that. I can't remember.
Okay, well, thanks.
I'm sorry. I usually know. I can usually remember, but now that you've asked, I cannot remember.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Okay.
Good night. This is the music that he's referring to. And since he mentioned Dreamland, let me see here. You know what we're going to be talking about this week? Dreams. Dreams. Dr. Robert Langs is the author of the Dream Workbook and the Daydream Workbook. And we are going to take a medical look at dreams, a scientific medical look at dreams. This is not dream interpretation. We're going to be talking about dreams from a medical point of view on Dreamland this week. Don't miss it, coming up Sunday. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art.
Good morning.
This is Rick calling you from the L.A. area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, listen, I once requested that you'd have Colonel James Ammerman on, and I called his office, and they said that he's supposed to come on sometime on 11 o'clock show. and it was Art Bell show.
Well, I have received no such communication, so I don't know how they could be saying that.
Did you call him?
I think I did make a call, but there was no schedule set up, as I recall. We didn't finalize anything, so...
Should I have them call you again?
Well, yes. Have them fax me or something, yes.
Yeah, because they call the 1-800 West of the Rockies line. That's probably what, because they're east of the Rockies. So I got to give them the east of the Rockies line.
That would make all the sense in the world. Better yet, give them my fax number.
Oh, I don't have it, Art.
It's you want it ready?
Yes, go ahead.
Area code 702.
702
727
727
8499.
8499.
Yes,
You
sir.
got to have him on there, Art. He's got a lot to say about the Flight 800 Downing, you know.
All right, I'll listen.
Okay, thank you, Art.
Right, take care. I'll certainly listen. We were touching on that last night, the Flight 800 business with Richard Hoagland. And Richard did point out something kind of interesting. On television, they have never shown the other side of the plane. They always say there is no apparent impact or exit point. As you know, in other words, if a missile hit an airplane, presumably there would be an impact showing an inward fluxing of the metal of the fuselage as they put it back together again. And he did point out something that is, I think, right, and that is whenever they show the plane, they only show one side of it. You never get a camera look around of the entire airplane. That doesn't mean that there's something they're hiding, but he did make a pretty good point. First time caller line, you're on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Hi. I was just
I can barely hear you, ma'am.
one of these portable phones.
Do you have a real phone there?
No, just one of these portable ones.
All right, that's better. That's better. Just
Okay.
get right into it.
Okay, yeah, the woman was calling a while back talking about brain death.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a critical care nurse, and I've worked in critical care for 9 years and involved in several.
Talk into that phone, ma'am.
I said I've been involved in several organ donation
Right.
cases, and we've got two criteria. I don't know if it's different in other states, but in Washington, they have to have no spontaneous respirations and no brain function other than brainstem. And they're not technically brain dead, but.
Well, there was a 60 Minutes piece several weeks ago in which there was no doubt about it, ma'am. Before some of the things you just talked about occurred, they were harvesting organs.
Yeah, I think it depends on the nature of the injury of the patient. If there's pretty much no brain functioning other than just baseline, they usually won't.
Okay, well, I appreciate your call, but I'm not going to hold you on the line because you're just drifting away from your phone there. When you call, you've got to stay right into the phone, and pretty soon we're not hearing you. Some people have a habit of doing that. They'll make a call, and the phone, as they're talking, will slowly drop down further and further until it's finally laying on their chest. You can't do that. You got to talk right into the phone. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art. This is Josie from Richmond.
Hi, Josie.
I've been difficult getting a hold of you, but now this is the questions or the little information that I have for you about Mr. Rosenthal. When you had Richard Hoagland on the air,
yes,
Friday, Saturday, April 25th and 26th,
yep.
Richard said to, hey, everybody call the your national news of Ted Koppel and Mr. John Holloman.
Yes.
Well, I knew that the papers all copy the AP, so I called the AP service, and they directed me to this science writer called, guess what, Mr. Rosenthal. So, yes. And so I thought you would like to know that I believe I referred Hoagland's website they're all in a hurry. They're never able to really hear. They hear just some of the main points. And I said, look, NASA has decided they're not going to Europa. You know how important that was to most of us who thought there was life there or that there's a possibility of life there.
Yes.
I said for $100 million, the cost is 1/5 the cost of a bomber. We could send a...
Well, now, wait a minute. Who were you actually speaking with?
Mr. Rosenthal.
You were speaking
yes, I was.
To Harry Rosenthal?
Yes, I was. And so he said, thank you very much. You know, he got the website address. I can't remember if I gave the phone number for Richard Hoagland, but I certainly gave the website address. I think he was interested in that. I also talked to John Holloman, happened to get a hold of him at CNN, he said, "Oh, we've already checked into that, and they are going to Europa." Like that was false. I said,
Well, that's not entirely true. What the man from NASA said was that there will be other missions, and because of the intense interest in Europa, it probably will be done.
Right, but it was for way in the future.
That's right.
Holloman just said it wasn't true. Now, then you had your NASA people on there, and they said they weren't going.
Well, they said that in the present, with regard to the present decisions that have been made, with regard to the proposals that were made, Europa's proposals, quote, did not make the cut.
That's right, exactly. That's why I was confused. So that's why I sent you a fax on all this, but you get lots of faxes. I don't know if I sent a fax yesterday. I don't know if you received it. But I do have a news service telephone number for the AP News Service if you're interested in that. Also,
well, I can't give it out on the air until...
for the AP News Service telephone?
Yeah.
Because I knew you had their fax.
Not until... Yeah, but that's right. But that was confirmed. And, on the possibility that we get a number wrong, we're in big trouble. So
well, this is what the people here gave me as their telephone man. Of course, anyway, also Dan Golden was on Nightline this past week, I think it was.
That's right.
They had a thing on Nightline. You realize about the mirror subsidies?
Yes.
He was very defensive in his posture. I
think that's right. NASA is very defensive right now. Thank you about their mere involvement. A lot of congressmen are beginning to get a little irritated with regard to our involvement with MIR. Why are we involved with MIR? Have you asked yourself that question? Why are we launching space shuttle missions to maintain MIR? Why are we contributing oxygen equipment to keep MIR going? Why do we have an American on a spacecraft that I don't think is entirely safe, despite what NASA said all week long? I don't have the answer to any of those questions. I would like to proceed with our own space station. Instead, we have joined the Ruskies for whatever reason. It really never has been explained satisfactorily. So I'll leave it at that for now. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello, Mr. Bell.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm calling from Lihue, Kauai, Hawaii.
Hi, Mike.
A couple weeks ago, you're talking about you had an author or someone making a book called Lucifer's Hammer.
Yes.
And I just finished reading it.
Dr. Jerry Purnell. It is a wonderful book, isn't it?
Yes, it's very good. I'm just wondering if you had, on your webpage, if you had anything with any other good book reads or anything?
I suppose I ought to construct a list like Wayne Green does of books that you absolutely have to read.
Yeah.
But presently, I do not have that, no.
Okay.
But it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get a cat page, we can have a book page.
Uh-huh. Yeah, true. That's true. One more quick question.
Yes.
Did you ever have George Lucas on?
No, but I'd love to.
Because I've read all of his books, and I mean, it's just a fascinating world that he's created with his mind and all these other authors.
Oh, I'd love to. He'd be a blast to have on, sure.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I will have anybody on if you haven't figured that out yet. Virtually from any discipline at all. Anybody who is interesting, I'll have on. Happy to. I don't, to me, there are no limits. Why would anybody want to set limits for what they would do with regard to, say, a program like this, talk radio? Why would you want to set limits? Foolish. And yet the entire industry does it. One day they'll figure it out. Like the old liners in talk radio have this vision that talk radio must be political. It must discuss things like the budget, the balanced budget. Newt Gingrich is fine. The president's latest malady. or problem with some lady who's going to sue them, whatever. It's like they have an idea that that is what talk radio must be, and they have this narrow vision of it. One of these days, they'll open their eyes, hopefully before their pocketbook evaporates. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Fred up in Tacoma.
Hi there.
Hey, I want to refer back to that woman that was on about an hour and a half ago with the transplants with the cravings and such.
Yes.
Well, I had a transplant about 2.5 years ago, and about 6 months after I had the transplant, I started craving root beer for a real long time.
What was transplanted?
Oh, my liver.
Your liver?
Yeah.
And you started wanting root beer?
Oh, yeah, really bad. It was like I'd go to a drive-in, and I'd have this really strong craving for root beer. And I had this craving for like a year and a half. Then it just tapered off, and it's very strange.
Well, do you know who the donor was?
No, I don't.
Do you want to know?
I think at this point, no.
And previous in your life, you had not ever particularly been a root beer kind of person?
This is true. I was more of a Coca-Cola type of person.
Dave up in Ukiah sent me a fax saying that he had an artificial heart valve.
Uh-huh.
And he's had a craving for WD-40 ever since. They have these...
That's a good one.
Made of titanium.
Yeah. Wonder how he gets it in.
I don't know. He sprays it. Maybe he snorts it.
Oh, man, that'd be painful. Red tube, huh?
Well, yes, it would. It certainly would. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Take care. The only way you could verify, whether the organ was causing that craving would be to research your donor and find out if that person talked to the family, had a big thing for root beer. And, I'd say there's better than not that they did. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Oh, hello, Art Bell.
Hello there. Where are you?
Arlington, Texas.
Arlington, Texas.
I was your first caller when you came to 570.
No kidding.
Yeah. Listen, I know you're almost out of time, and I wanted to let you know, along the lines of apologies.
Yes.
For the president. About 2 or 3 nights ago, I heard on one of the other local stations, I think it was the national news feed, they said that in the night, I think 1961 or 1962, the government sprayed some kind of a thing like with a crop duster. Anyway, it was a cancerous agent. And
where?
Over the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, also Waco and Denton.
Oh my God! Listen.
Premier Radio Networks presents Art Bell Somewhere in Time. Tonight's program originally aired June 1st, 1995.
Here again, it's an open line session. Anything you want to bring up is fair game. Talking a lot about Bob Dole's statement yesterday and whether he really meant it, whether it came from the heart or the White House reflecting eyeballs. Here's a fax on the subject. Art, Bob Dole could be committing political suicide by keeping this anti-Hollywood thing up. It's quite obvious that he has not seen Natural-Born Killers, and if he did, he'd see the message is about how we, the public, tend to glorify the OJs, the Tonya Hardings, and the Loretta Bobbitts, and how we tend to become obsessed with the real-life details of their crimes. If Bob Dole wants to be president, he needs to focus on the issues which are on the people's minds. It certainly isn't government regulation of what Hollywood puts on the screen. It's crime, the economy, and welfare reform. People who want Hollywood and television productions regulated, to me, are lazy parents. They simply want to be able to drop their kid off at a theater, and they want to drop their kid in front of the boob tube and be done with it. Why don't they try parenting? I do it. I enjoy it. Bob needs to do the right thing, stick to the real issues, and don't play to the religious right, which Pat Buchanan seems to have a happy home with. Signed, Eric from Grants Pass. That was well written, Eric, and I think right to the point. I want to now repeat that we're going to be reading the Pope's predictions to the year 2000 because of the very now close date of June 5th mentioned in them. And I will do it only once. I will do it next hour when we have the final radio stations for the evening joining us. We'll do it in the next hour. And that way I won't have people calling back and saying, oh, I missed it, you're going to have to read it again, which I inevitably do. So get ready for that next hour. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art. Jerry from Minneapolis.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi. Real quickly, Eric is right on principle, but wrong on tactics. The religious right are the balance of power. They're the swing vote.
I think that may well be true for the right. Yes,
Real quickly, first off, does your cartoonist friend in, I believe it's Phoenix, have the bubble with cop killer, Pulp Fiction, and Natural-Born Killers inside of it, leading over to the gunman who is probably young and a juvenile in the street and killing people, much like you were blamed along with our talk radio.
Well, I was going to say you could do a cartoon like that and just put a little extension, a little lightning bolt, my name there again.
Well, let's have a little consistency here. The First Amendment, either it's an absolute right with responsibility implied, or it's politically correct.
No, it's a very well-made point. I mean, very well made.
Also, one more thing, Art. It was a little over a year ago, probably almost 2 years ago now, that Janet Reno was calling for specific laws and censorship against these same Hollywood types. Bob Dole is only suggesting to act responsibly. I'm not a defender of Bob Dole, but he was asking on a voluntary basis.
Oh, it's true. No, all of that is true. I think the question is more whether this is something that Bob Dole really feels as an issue, something important to him, or just something he thinks he needs to say.
Oh, he's a classic tactical politician. I don't have much. I'm not too impressed by him, but I'm just marveling at the delicious irony of listening to the liberals talking today about how he has no right to say this, and how can they defend what's going on in Hollywood? And yet Janet Reno, they never gnashed their teeth 2 years ago when she was speaking up asking for laws.
Well, I'll tell you. All right, thank you. I'll tell you what CBS said. They observed that this may be difficult for President Clinton because a lot of money and a lot of support, of course, come from Hollywood to the president. And if the right makes Hollywood a big issue, it may be that Mr. Clinton will have to sort of sidle away from his close Hollywood connections. CBS seemed to be nearly bemoaning that possibility. Nevertheless, I want to be fair. What Bob Dole said has value. The trouble is that I don't think he believes it. I don't think it's a real conviction of his. Doggone it anyway. I'm sorry that I have to be saying these things about Bob Dole, because actually he's a good man. Bob Dole is a good man. It's just that he's as far into the bureaucracy of Washington as MGM is into that of the movie world. And, I just don't think he's the man to beat Bill Clinton. So I really hate being negative about Bob Dole. But I'm going to say what I think. And I think that what he did was political opportunism, and that's it. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hi.
Yes, Art Bell there.
Yeah, well, let me check. Art? Well, yes. Hello, this is Art Bell.
Hello, this is Wayne from Index, Washington.
Wayne, would you turn off your radio for us?
Oh, certainly.
That's good.
So are we on the air?
Well, I hope so.
You hope so? I didn't hear it. Didn't sound like it on my radio.
Uh-huh.
But, see, I had a gentleman called about the Scallion phone number.
Yes.
And he also has another number. It's his hotline. He updates it every Wednesday at 12. And,
yeah, I'd rather not give that one out. I think it's a 900 number, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah. No, let's not give that one out. We'll let him give that out.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about, these big satellite dishes up on top of the hills, you see?
Yes.
And are they capable of aiming and directing laser beams? Like, laser warfare? I had this weird dream a while back. Just wondering about that.
Well, generally, satellite dishes are exactly that, satellite dishes. Now, I'm not familiar exactly with what a laser would look like, but I think it would not look like a satellite dish. So it would obviously have to have some reflective properties. So I really can't answer your questions. It's for talking to Martians or something. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. I have no idea, sir. Thank you. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi. Is this Art?
Yes.
Yes. This is Two Birds from Gates, Oregon.
Gates, Oregon.
Right.
Your name is Two Birds?
Right.
Okay.
I'm an Indian.
Oh. I guess that would be a Native American name. Okay. Okay, Two Birds. Welcome.
Yeah. I have some information. There's been a lot of talk about conspiracy theories lately.
Americans love them.
Yes. Well, I happen to have some information about a conspiracy fact about the.
That can't be. I mean, if it is fact, then it is not a conspiracy. It's fact.
Oh, well,
I mean, a conspiracy by its very nature is a theory, right? Well, wait a minute. I guess you could be convicted of conspiracy.
Sure.
Okay, I see. All right. Okay, Two Birds. Let's get to it. What is it?
Okay. I don't know if you're familiar about the true 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
You mean an amendment that's not there now?
Right. There was an amendment that was ratified on December 10th, 1812, and through a conspiracy of the Fat Cats and their agents working to undermine the Constitution, they arranged to have it disappear over a period of 70 years.
Wow.
And
you mean like one word or sentence at a time? It just sort of.
No, they got control of the publishing industry, and through bribery and so forth, You
mean like disappearing ink?
Well, no, it was like on a state-by-state basis.
Uh-huh.
It disappeared from the law books in one state, and then another, and then another. And by the time the last incidents that we've been able to discover was 1876.
And what was this 13th Amendment that has disappeared?
Okay, brief. I can read the text of it.
No. Just give us the idea.
Well, it's just one. Basically, it's one long sentence.
Which says roughly what?
Okay, it says, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them.
Well, you know, that worries me. You know why?
Why?
Because somebody sent me a large sword and dubbed and had inscribed on it, you know, like I'm talking the big sword. I'm talking a big regular sword. It says Sir Arthur Bell on it. Now,
you're in trouble.
Well, it sounds that way. All right. Well, thank you very much for the call. Guess I'm in trouble, huh? What am I going to do with the sword? Jeez, I've lost it all. But then again, that amendment's lost, so what the hey. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hi.
Well, hi, Art.
Hi.
Let me turn my radio off here.
Turn your radio off and get closer to the phone or something. It's hard to hear you.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Diamond Springs, California.
Okay.
And I'm Bill.
Okay, Bill.
I guess you didn't get a chance to watch Ted Koppel tonight.
No, I was on the air.
Had Pat Buchanan and Norman Leader on.
I see.
And it was an interesting exchange.
Well, now, you see, Pat Buchanan, I would imagine, would be able to do a better job on Hollywood than Bob Dole did yesterday. So I bet it was.
He spent most of his time defending Bob Dole. He didn't make any judgments as to whether Dole, believes in his heart of hearts that what he said. He just marveled at the depth and breadth of what he laid out, because this is kind of a watershed thing, because no one's gotten really specific until Dole did what he did.
Well, he did.
Time Warner, I mean, obviously, it's like they had the CEO or, the head monkey about the
Time Warner,
and all he could do was label the thing some kind of ad hominem attack, which is not the case at all. It was a very detailed attack.
It was.
And I tend to agree with it, and I don't care whether Bob Dole
means it or not.
He's playing politics with this. What he says is true. What he says reflects my feelings. And if I got out in front of my house and yelled it at the top of my lungs, no one would hear it. But Bob Dole just happens to be a candidate for the presidency of the United States, might even become it. And so the press makes note of what he says. So I'm glad he said it.
Well, okay, sir. I am not going to take issue with what Bob Dole said, because basically, with the exception of Natural Born Killers, which I'll bet he hasn't seen, I agree. And the values of Hollywood are very troublesome. However, there is this thing about the First Amendment. I delineate between adults and children. I mean, most of you adults, I said this last hour. I've seen Natural Born Killers. It had production value. There was lots of killing in it, but it was not gratuitous without a redeeming value or a dramatic value or story value. All of that was there. So I wouldn't have picked that movie. There's plenty of other ones out there with true gratuitous violence and no production value that I could discern at all. But more important, I think, is whether or not I believe that Bob Dole means what he said, or whether he's saying it just because he wants to be president. That's what I think. It was just a political statement. I like people who mean what they say and say what they mean. I am suspicious of people who do things for political convenience and gain. And I know that that's what politicians do. And that's what Bob Dole did. And so I guess I'm just observing. Well, Norman Lear said the following, quote, Hollywood, in its presentation of violence and sex, has no more to answer for than the Congress of the United States. The name of the game in the entertainment business is short-term profit. This is exactly what Congress is all about. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value be damned, end quote. Now, that probably is also a fair statement, isn't it? Regarding politics. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value be damned. And I thought that was a reasonable response to Mr. Dole's blast in Hollywood. Dole's not wrong. I just don't believe that he means it. He has had a very long and somewhat distinguished career with some blemishes. But he's never harped on Hollywood before. And when you hear him now harping on Hollywood, you can, you look in Miss Dole's eyes, you see little shimmering white houses. And when he attacks something like Hollywood, the white houses sort of, they get a little brighter. They pulse. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, Art. KWHN, Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
I know you're not going to agree with this, but I think if Bob Dole, if he gets the nomination, I believe he'll do more harm for the Republican Party than Clinton being in office for another 4 years.
Well, you're right. I don't agree with that.
I look at it this way. Bob Dole does not represent the up-and-coming Republicans in the Republican Party.
Well, I do agree with that.
I mean, he has, if you look back at everything he has done, he has basically flip-flopped almost as much as Clinton. He has made...
yeah, there's no question about it. Bob Dole's a compromiser. Bob Dole's been all his adult life a compromiser. That's what he does. I mean, that's what a minority leader and then a majority leader, that's what they do. It's compromise. It's not good.
One vote.
It's not good training for strong leadership, in my opinion. He touts it as such, but a life of compromise is not a good OJT for a president who's got to make decisions.
If he can't make decisions now, what good will he do if he is elected, which I don't think he will be, by the way. But if he is elected, he'll hurt the Republican Party. It would be better for Clinton to be in there and let him do his political pandering like he's doing right now than for Dole to get in there and turn away some of the young Republicans that are coming up.
Well, frankly, thank you. I don't really like either possibility, and I'm hoping for something else. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Art. This is Eric in Bellingham.
Hello, Eric.
How's it going?
Fine.
I was watching a thing with Newt Gingrich. I believe he was on, I don't think it was Nightline. It was on one of the major networks. So it was while you were out of town.
Yes.
While you were on vacation.
Right.
And he was asked straight out if he planned on running for president. And he had said no, that he plans on staying as speaker and focusing on his accomplishments as speaker.
I know.
Oh, okay. Well,
I know he said that.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't too sure if people were clear on that, but man, I tell you, that would be a good race. I had a opportunity to watch him speak on C-SPAN. He was speaking in front of a bunch of realtors, which anybody else, it would have been a boring type thing to watch. But man, I was just captured.
The guy is an intellect. There's absolutely no denying it. Love the guy or hate his guts, you've got to admit he's an intellect.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And when this thing was over with, I couldn't believe that I wanted to hear more. And he's talking about, the economy and raising or lowering interest rates for, houses and whatnot. But he's able to go on about some of the other political aspects. I thought it was quite fascinating, actually.
Well, I'm sure it was, and he certainly is, sir, and I hope, I've got my fingers crossed. He has said no Sherman-esque-like statements, and that always leaves the door open. And in the last couple of days, he's made some statements indicating he might be beginning to think about it again, and, well, he should. Let me see if I can get this now. Dear Art, shame on you for implying all, or even most women, would react nicely to a fur coat. If a man gave me anything with fur on it, I'd feel like retching all night long. Oh, no, it's worse. She said, it's not retching. I would feel like reacting all night, like Lorena Bobbitt. Oh, that's terrible. Then she says, welcome back. Signs it, Liberal Sue in Illinois. P.S. You're right about Bob Dole. Well, just let me remember that, Sue. I think most women, I stick with that. Most women, I think, would very much enjoy a fur coat, Sue, but certainly after what you've said, far be it from me to give you anything with even a little hair on it. I mean, I'd brush it all off, whatever it is I ever gave you, Sue. That's liberal named Sue. I'm waiting for her to call in.
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time, on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from June 1st, 1995. You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time, on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from June 1st, 1995.
Good morning, everybody. Good to be here. I'm Art Bell, and we're raging through the nighttime with 5 hours of unscreened, unpredictable, spontaneous talk radio. West of the Rockies, you're next. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Well, I just had a couple of questions for you. Well, actually, one thing. The guy who's calling about the satellite delay,
Yes.
basically that would be a result of the signal having to travel farther, wouldn't it? 23,000 miles up and back. I mean, that's a lot further than any landline would have to go.
Well, it is, but they also get those delays with landline as well. And a lot of times it'll produce a very annoying echo, and they've got a lot of equipment to combat that. So I'm really not sure. I know that sometimes we get great connections from Alaska. Sometimes we get very poor connections with a great deal of delay. Where are you?
Actually, I'm in Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. Well, see, there's no delay at all.
No problem. Hey, last night I heard a woman call, and she said she found recently a brother in North Carolina that was given up to adoption, et cetera, et cetera. And she asked what frequency he could hear on. And then she had another question, and you said you'd come back at the top of the hour or after the news and answer it. I'm not sure I ever heard that. And I forgot what her question was. But
I remembered. It was, were the psychic hairs on the back of my neck starting?
That's right, earthquakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, basically what I was calling about was that I consider myself pretty much a typical Republican, a mix of your moderate to conservative and maybe some surprisingly, I don't know, you could probe me and find maybe some liberal type leanings, but basically a middle of the road Republican. And I agree with you that Bob Dole, I don't think he would end up being a viable candidate because I don't think we should fool ourselves. The real trick here.
Well, so what's going on? Here I am with that view, and you with that view. You've just described yourself about the way I describe myself, and yet all the polls show Bob Dole, I mean, is so far out in front, it's not even funny. So we are not typical.
Well, if I can use the sports analogy, baseball. You start off kind of on one angle, and you end up going to the right, and you come all the way around. You end up coming to home. It ends up being the middle. Now, basketball and football, they end up switching sides at the half, so you can't really use that. So let's say the Republicans end up going to, lead off, and they end up towards first base. So I guess that means Democrats run the bases backwards, as far as I'm concerned. But what I'm saying is that everything's geared towards the people that vote.
I hate baseball. You shouldn't use baseball analogies.
Well, it's the only thing that seems to be fitting for me. That I'm disenchanted with it myself. But let me just get back to what I'm trying to say is that not very many people vote, frankly. And it seems to me a bit of a game in that there's the posturing. You start off on one degree, and you come around towards the middle. Even some astute politicians such as Truman and Nixon recognize the fact that you start off leaning, say Nixon would be towards the right a bit, and then he ends up coming towards the middle to win it.
Yeah.
Now I just see where Dole is positioning himself too early, way too far right, to where that leaves a lot of room for Clinton to slide over in the middle and easily win this thing.
Well, that's a very good point. Thank you. What you have to do generally is, as you're headed toward the convention and the nomination, you do have to go either very far right or very far left, because those are generally the delegates and the people who attend the conventions. They're very much at the extreme. And then after that, when you get into the real campaign, you got to pull yourself back to the center. So that is right. It's just that somehow, what Bob Dole did yesterday seemed, God, I hate doing this, insincere. Now, that's a very rough word, and it may well be that Bob Dole does feel somewhat this way, but it seemed like a purely political blast with one particular intent. That was to attract the religious right as much as possible from Pat Buchanan, who, by the way, I think is the genuine article. I don't even like saying that. I mean, Bob Dole is a genuine article in the sense that he is a good man with a lot of distinguished service to the United States and a great war record and a hell of an individual and a very brave person, and he's all of that. I just don't think that he's the right man to run against Bill Clinton. And to me, that's important, because as I sit here contemplating the possibility of another 4 years of Bill Clinton, the psychic hairs and the political hairs and even the hair hairs all stand up on the back of my neck. On the first-time caller line, you are on the air.
Yes, Art. I wanted to ask a couple questions, and I'll take my answer off the air.
Okay.
I'm calling from San Francisco. My name is Cindy. I'm listening on KSFO.
Oh, the big one up there. Yes, Cindy.
Yeah, I wanted to know, when's the next time you're going to have Mr. Scallion on? And in your opinion, do you think that the scenario, the latest one he predicted, has begun since the earthquake in Russia happened?
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Next time I'm going to have Mr. Scallion on. Well, I don't know. We did a gigantic show with him, as you know, not long ago, 4 hours. 4 hours. It's the longest interview ever given to anybody by Gordon Scallion. So we'll wait a little while. I mean, Gordon will come back on if I ask him to. And now, that may be influenced by what happens with this cycle. Now, the earthquake in Russia, about 30 miles from the Japanese coast, may well be, and according to Gordon Scallion, may well be the beginning of the cycle of the larger quakes. If it is, and if I see this cycle progress as we all fear that it might, then let me put it to you this way. Before the cycle gets past South America, I will have Gordon Michael Scallion back on. Depend on it. So I'm watching the present cycle very carefully, and we will see. How's that for an answer? Best I can do. East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Craig in Memphis, listening on WMC.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, I heard that Bob Dole mentioned the movie True Romance.
He did. I've not yet seen it.
I've seen it, and it was great. It really didn't have that much sex in it, but it was very violent, like all of Tarantino's movies. But I tell you what I think would be interesting and probably won't happen. Bridges of Madison County is going to be a smash.
That's what they say.
Well, and what does it deal with? It deals with a woman having an affair.
Well, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I don't know much about it.
Well, that's just what I've heard, but I haven't read it myself. But it as far as morality and all, you won't hear anybody attacking that, I don't think. And it's, very popular.
Well, I think the ones he picked were easy targets. I think that, I'm sorry, but I think that it was just a sort of a political thing for Bob Dole to do. And because I think that, it makes me less interested in Bob Dole. I mean, there's a lot of really important issues right now that Bob Dole could have used his present forum to pound on. I mean, really important stuff. Bosnia comes to mind. Leadership in a situation like Bosnia comes to mind. There are just all kinds of things. The welfare state, the fact that Clinton really hasn't done anything, health care, all kinds of issues Bob Dole could have used the forum to pound on, but he took an easy shot, and he did it for an apparent, to me, it was very transparent.
There's one other thing I wanted to mention. Back when Perot was running for president, I pretty much liked a lot of what he was saying, and I was glad to hear someone, first start talking about deficit spending,
right?
Which, it was a brand new topic. But the thing that got me disenchanted with him was there was some kind of neighborhood that had a real bad drug problem somewhere in Texas, and he said, just give me a couple weeks and I'll solve it, and saying how he would, just block it off and go door to door. And
I remember that. Yes.
And that is when I was like, no way. I mean, everything else about him, even though he was kind of quirky and crazy, I liked it. But then the thought of someone just, a police state in this one little place, that, things like that can just keep happening. And that's when he lost me.
I appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that statement, as a matter of fact. I liked Ross Perot, for the most part. Ross Perot is kind of crazy. Ross Perot is a bomb thrower. Ross Perot is a man who will say exactly what's on his mind. Ross Perot is somebody who would have shaken up Washington in a way it's never been shaken up before, and it would have done a lot more good for Washington than Bill Clinton's done in the years he's been there. I voted for Ross Perot. I agonized about that. I mean, I got so angry at Ross Perot when he dropped out, I could almost not go on the air. I was red-faced. And then the campaign went on and on and on. I'm looking at George Bush, and I'm looking at Bill Clinton, and I'm going, oh, I just can't do it. Got to sleep at night, and so I went for Ross Perot. And I can see a scenario building this time when I would go for a third-party candidate. Maybe. It depends on who the Republican nominee is. If it's Bob Dole, I may have a problem. Yeah, we'll see. I tell you, Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, now there you'd have an election. There you'd have something worth the price of admission. There you'd have something that would be a rip-em, tear-em election of the century. If the O.J. Simpson trial is the trial of the century, this would be the election of the century. No doubt about it. First-time caller line, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Art. Let me turn my radio off here real quick.
Thank you.
I really enjoy your show. It gives me a lot to think about during the daytime. And something I was thinking about, have you seen the movie The Lion King?
No, but
okay.
I would like to.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good family movie. Disney always had a little dark side in their pictures. Anyway, my 8-year-old boy, he was noticing that when the bad lion, his name is Scar, took over the kingdom.
Yeah.
The kingdom, it went to crap. It just, everything died. There was no water. And he told me that he thought it was similar to the way Bill Clinton was running America.
Like the bad Lion King, huh?
Right, yeah.
You
And he was real attentive about that. And he also said that Bill Clinton's like yesterday's newspaper. What he says today doesn't matter tomorrow.
Well, that's true. Thank you very much for the call. I agree with that. Look at his statements of the last few days. It's kind of like, well, we're not going to put ground troops in Bosnia. Then, well, maybe under these conditions, we will put ground troops in Bosnia. And then the next day, no, we're not going to put ground troops in Bosnia. We'd spill a lot of blood. Now it's all in the space of, count them, 1, 2, 3 days. I have given up. I really, really have given up listening to Bill Clinton. I just simply don't believe anything he's got to say anymore. It's all contingent on what the reaction is, apparently. He just does not make decisions that he sticks with or that he really... See, I guess what I want, and it's the same complaint I have with Bob Dole, I want somebody who really believes what he's saying. I think that's what attracted me to Perot. Wild a man as he was, the guy believed what he was saying. A lot of what he said was very good, too. He had the strength of his convictions. That's what I liked about Ronald Reagan. The strength of his convictions. Who have we seen lately like that? I even have complaints about Gingrich, but he's pretty good. I have complaints about, I'll tell you, another man with the strength of his convictions is Pat Buchanan. There's no question about it. I like Buchanan. I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. But if he begins to catch fire, and I would do whatever I could do to help, I'd be in there plugging away for Pat Buchanan. In the meantime, I'll say it again, Gingrich, Clinton, there you've got a real election. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
I just hung up.
I beg your pardon?
Art. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was playing with the phone, and I thought you were part of it. Hey, and when you visit over into China, do they have all the controversies like they do here with their government? Or because they're communists, they're just quiet about it?
Well, their attitude about dissent is a little different than ours.
Yeah.
They shoot people.
Well, that's not fair.
Don't laugh. I
believe that.
I mean, a few cracks about the leadership there, and you can be body points.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious over that, because we here in America having our freedom of free speech and all, and with all the controversy over this new coming elections of the presidents and all that, I was just curious to hear what you'd recently found out over there.
Well, that's it, sir. Yes, thank you. Before you can say 7.62, your liver's in somebody else. On the wild card line, you're on the air.
Yeah, Art, how you doing?
Doing fine, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I wanted to tell you how much I appreciated, I think it was the just plain gentleman you had from the middle of nowhere in Oregon.
Oh, he calls himself radio's regular guy.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah, he had a guy talking on there a while back about the Philadelphia experiment.
No, that was me.
Well, yeah, that's right. That was you. That's right. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Excuse me. I find those very, very fascinating. Just real quick, I've been hearing a lot about Bosnia. Tonight on CBS News, or I think it was NBC News, they were talking about how the president was changing his mind again, and that there might not be any ground troops committed. However, there are some 2,000 troops in Germany now preparing, and so on and so forth.
Live fire exercises. Yeah, they're getting ready to go in. Sure.
Well, my son is in one of those units in Germany. He told me last October that he was going to be going to Macedonia. He called me in April and said May 16th was the day they were going to Macedonia. I said, where are you going to be? He says, we're going to be about 100 yards from the Bosnian border on an outpost overlooking this whole thing.
Yep.
And I said, you mean to tell me you're going to be out there where the bullets are flying? He says, well, when his advanced troops went in to set up the outpost, the Bosnians went into a heightened state of alert because they thought the United States was going to invade.
Yeah, your son is what's known as a tripwire.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they say there's only 500 of them, but actually they sent the whole battalion. There's about 1,500 of them down there.
Well, maybe. It's a tripwire. In other words, if they come across the border, that's it. Then we are involved. Then we are at war. And frankly, if they begin to cross borders, then I think there will be very little choice anyway.
Yeah. Well, the thing I told him was, I said, well, make sure you shoot back. He said, the UN commander is a Swede, from what I understand, and hates Americans. And he wasn't going to give them that authority until after he saw them go out and practice for a couple of weeks and decided that they could have the authority on a limited basis to defend themselves if and when necessary. And I thought, well, son, I'm not real happy that that's what's going on. But if that's the case, make sure you, when you shoot, make sure you shoot to kill to defend yourself, because they're not going to stop. So anyway, I don't know how many American people know that, but I tried to get to.
Well, I'm glad you said it, and I would just, the advice I would give my son is to hell with Mr. Swede. If somebody shoots at you, shoot back and shoot to kill.
That's it. Well, I told him, I said, they're going to probably be wearing body armor, shoot to the head and run like hell. But anyway, I tried to get
sort of a modified Gordon Liddy thing.
Well, I told him, I said, look, I've tried to let CBS know. I tried to tell NBC. Nobody's interested. That we've already got troops just right on the verge of going in. And I thought, well, I wish somebody would say it, but nobody has. So, but anyway, thank you for the opportunity. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. They're really not on the verge of going in. The troops in Macedonia are there as a tripwire. And what that means is that if the Serbs come rush across the border, anybody comes rushing across the border, and Macedonia begins to be involved, then we're saying that's our line in the sand. We will then truly be involved. And by the way, I would back that idea. We just cannot let the Serbs run wild and begin to do a Hitler on Europe. So, you know, that part of what we're doing, I think, is appropriate. We don't want another Germany, do we? But we don't have one yet, and that's not what's going on. And so I'm not ready for the big fight. But apparently a lot of people back in Washington.
You're listening to Art Bell Somewhere in Time, tonight featuring a replay of Coast to Coast AM from June 1st, 1995.
This is kind of a Bob Dole goes Hollywood night. That's unfair. Bob Dole hits Hollywood night is more like it. Campaign 96 underway is more like it. CBS called it sex, drugs, rock and dole. Rock and dole. He attacked Hollywood, their movies, their producers, their values, the record industry as well. He sees it as graphic and gratuitous violence. He said the entertainment industry is debasing the culture, that's us, with indecent movies and deviant music. He said, quote, a line has been crossed, not just of taste, but of human dignity and decency when Hollywood's dream factories turn out nightmares of depravity, end quote. He cited Natural-Born Killers for its violence, True Romance for its sexually explicit scenes, and blasted Time Warner, Two Live Crew, that kind of thing. To Time Warner, he said, quote, I would ask the executives of Time Warner a question. Must you debase our nation and threaten our children for the sake of corporate profits, end quote. So, the only question I have for you, you know, Bob Dole, incidentally, news this hour was that Time Warner was a contributor to Bob Dole's campaign. My question is whether you think Bob Dole is sincere or whether the little white houses that can be seen in the pupil of his eyes whenever he gets a good close-up of the camera are pulsating. In other words, has he just taken a political shot? And I'm sorry, but that's what I believe. And I'll say it again and again, Bob Dole is a good, honorable person. He's a good man. He's a politician. And he's, you know, in his career, he's not been known to take shots at Hollywood before. And so I think this is just, you know, it's the campaign. And I think it's an attempt to co-opt some of the religious right vote that otherwise, no doubt, would go for Pat Buchanan, who, frankly, though I don't think he has a great chance at the office, is the genuine article. I mean, if the religious right really wants to cast a vote for somebody who really means what he says, I know that sounds harsh, then I think Pat Buchanan would be your guy, not Bob Dole. I see what Bob Dole's trying to do, and I'm not buying it, I guess. Norman Lear said the following, quote, Hollywood, in its presentation of violence and sex, has no more to answer for than the Congress of the United States. The name of the game in the entertainment business is short-term profit. This is exactly what Congress is all about. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value be damned, end quote. So that's probably true too, isn't it? So I'm kind of not buying what Bob Dole is saying. I'm also not buying what the president is saying, by the way. 3 days ago, it was no Americans on the ground in Bosnia. Then a couple of days ago, it was, well, Americans might go indeed to the ground in Bosnia. We've got to go in and rescue the UN or help them, worse yet, to reassemble in more defensible positions to do God knows what, which was really ridiculous. Then last night he was in Montana saying, well, no Americans, there'd be a lot of blood spilled. So I have no idea what it is that Mr. Clinton is saying. Quite clearly said yesterday was that the UN prisoners of war, and that's what they're calling them now, and the Serbs are calling them, that if we go in and try to rescue them or do anything else, there's going to be a blood bath. And I would imagine the Serbs mean exactly what they are saying. I would think this is a good time for diplomacy, and the diplomacy ought to be to go to both the Bosnians and the Serbs and say, we're ready to get out. Now, what do you guys think? We can do this the easy way or the hard way, and we'd rather do it the easy way. You open a path for the UN people to get out safely, and we'll get out of your hair, and you can fight all you want. Now, there's a piece of diplomacy that I like. Involves not sending U.S. GIs over there. It's just going to both sides and saying, you know, let's have a timeout. You want to have a war? Cool. We want to get the UN guys out. We don't want to shed a lot of blood doing it. Let them out. They'll be out of your hair. Get both sides to agree to that and leave. Anybody think that might be a good idea? When I was in the Tokyo airport, I came upon a lady beaming, very happy. She'd been in Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, whichever you prefer. And she had a little baby with her in a stroller, a little Vietnamese baby. And she had just adopted this baby, spent two months there adopting the child. And in the airport, you know, she was a proud new mom, and I was happy for her. But I thought, gee, why did she go all the way to Ho Chi Minh City and adopt a Vietnamese child when there's so many American children that could, you know, need adopting? And then I saw a report on CBS and the CBS special last night that told me exactly why. American courts, I'm sick of these stories. Baby Richard, baby Johnny, baby Mary, baby this, baby that. Parents adopt children. Years later, the natural parents come back and go to court and take the child back. The courts are giving the children back. That's horrendous. Horrendous. And it's no wonder. Now I understand why the lady was over in Ho Chi Minh City, and I don't blame her a bit. So I thought that would be a good subject. Mostly the comment, I must tell you, has been kind of divided. I would say the lion's share of it, Bob Dole and his blast at Hollywood, and then the rest of it, Bosnia, and scattered other topics. So that's where the morning has been so far. I have promised something, and I'm now going to deliver. Well, as a matter of fact, let me get a couple of things out of the way here, and then I will deliver. I said that I would read the Pope's predictions to the year 2000, and in just a moment, I am going to do exactly that. Okay, here we go. I have not been able to confirm whether the following is true or false. What I have in front of me is an article from a publication called Insight. The name of the article is A Pope's Predictions to the Year 2000. I warn you, some of this may be disconcerting to many of you. I also want to preface it with what they have prefaced the article with, entitled Editor's Note. The following is from the diary of Pope John the 23rd, who reigned from 1958 to 1963. This copy that appears in total was distributed by certain groups in several Catholic churches in Metro Manila. The world will suffer through a painful period of violent wars, deadly famine, and destructive natural disasters over the next 8 years. But that nightmare will be followed by a lengthy stretch of love and harmony, a beautiful, serene heaven on earth. Those startling predictions come from the sensational lost diary of Pope John the 23rd, the beloved pontiff, who died June 23rd, 1963. The dusty, leather-bound diary contained handwritten predictions and was found by a Vatican cleaning woman who was sorting through boxes stacked in a little-used storage room. The entries clearly spell out the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the Vietnam War, the unrest in the Middle East, the fall of communism years before they took place. Later entries call for even more troubled times. Pope John had periodic visits from both Jesus and the Virgin Mary, says a reverend who's pored over the wondrous tales. These sessions in the Pope's chambers resulted in fantastic glimpses into the future of mankind. The Pope was saddened to learn that conditions will get much worse before they take a sudden, sensational turn in the year 2000 that will return the world to the pristine beauty that was here for Adam and Eve. Pope John writes of heavenly visitors arriving by June of 95 in flaming chariots of steel. These special visitors will arrive at the height of despair and help man heal his wounds and work together to right all the horrible wrongs. Father D'Angelo, now 73 years old, has agreed to release some of the diary entries made between February of 1959 and April of 1963. The scrawled messages reveal a frightened and excited pontiff who decided to keep his meetings with Christ and the Madonna a secret. The first appearance of Christ took place February 12, 1959. Pope John notes, quote, "Dear God, I have been blessed like no man before me. The Savior has granted me a special audience here in my chambers. He tells me that I've been chosen to hear the truth no matter how awful it may be. It scares me a bit to be so entrusted, but I am honored all the same. Jesus tells me the Virgin Mary will come soon to deliver the first news of what will be." Now, the diary entries. Here we go. April 7th, 1959. She is more beautiful than I had ever imagined. The Madonna is a joy to behold. I just wish her message was a more positive one. She says in 4 years' time, the world will lose a great leader and a powerful nation will find itself involved in a conflict it cannot win. The fighting will take its toll on the battlefield and from within as the population despises the loss of its young men. The Holy Mother sheds tears as she describes the heartbreaking vision. August 17th, 1959. The Madonna's second visit is much like the first. She speaks sadly of unrest in our homeland, a change in the balance of power, and much blood being spilled in the sand. She says several madmen will send their people into battles in the name of God, but the Creator has nothing to do with these senseless struggles among brothers. January 30th, 1960. Christ comes to me again. I yearn to tell my fellow Christians of these miraculous appearances, but I am advised to keep quiet until the time is right. I cannot help but think that I could perhaps head off some of the terrible trouble that looms for all of us, but Christ tells me that misery must take place for the master plan to succeed. June 13th, 1960. The Virgin Mary says the world will get a false sense of hope 30 years from now when the chains of repression are shattered throughout Eastern Europe. The joy, however, will be short-lived as the freed people fight among themselves on how to run their countries. Thousands of poor, innocent children will perish due to the foolishness of their fathers. March 6th, 1961. Just when I thought my heavenly visits were over, the Madonna comes to me again. She seems tired of the headache that she must share with me. Replace headache, not headache, heartache. she must share with me. My heart aches to see her hurting so. The news again foreboding. The early 1900s will be a period of deadly national disasters. She says paradise will be struck by powerful winds and waves, while killer floods and earthquakes will shatter man's dwellings. By the middle of the decade, regional skirmishes will develop into full-fledged conflicts. As the casualties mount worldwide, famine will strike. The devastation will be like none seen before, especially throughout Africa, where millions will perish. September 23rd, 1961. She has returned with yet more bad news. It is becoming truly difficult for this humble servant to hear of such overwhelming hardships. The Madonna tells me terrifying diseases will be unleashed on the already weakened population of the world by late 1984. Wars will begin to wind down because the fighting nations will be greatly weakened from within. This is the beginning of the change. Hallelujah. May 19th, 1962. Now brace yourself, because some of this is going to begin to get to be very close. From the heavens will appear the saviors. They will arrive June 5th, 1995, and begin the task of assisting in the cleanup and repair of the environment in the crippled countries. Many will fear these odd-looking beings, but they come in peace and will, with God's guidance, transform Earth from a charred spinning rock to a lush oasis in space. The survivors will flourish in a world without war, disease, or hatred. My heart is finally at peace with this knowledge that there is hope for humanity. June 2nd, 1962. The Madonna tells me this will be her final visit. It is a joyous one, for she shares tremendous news. As the year 1998 arrives, our heavenly friends will have shared much of their advanced knowledge. Mankind will at last wipe out most of its diseases, and our lifespan will increase to the length of those listed in the Bible. The visitors will also share the remarkable power of resurrection, and throngs of wrongly dead will rise again. Finally, a wondrous miracle will take place in the sky above New York City, December 25th, 2000, the year 2000, when millions will witness the sensational appearance of a Messiah who will announce the beginning of a second paradise here on earth. Pope John the 23rd died a year later, before he ever had a chance to release his predictions. Experts say the diary is 100% authentic, and they urge people to prepare themselves for even leaner times before the beginning of next century. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Pope's predictions to the year 2000. I thought it timely, aside from all the many requests I had to please read them again, with the prediction with regard to June 5th, 1995, it's obviously a timely moment to reread them. They're unnerving, or they're joyful, or they're many things. They may or may not be true. It is odd that they would come from Manila in the Philippines and be represented to be from the Vatican. I cannot represent to you whether they are real or not real. It's like anything else. I was sent these. They were published in the publication called Insight. And so for whatever it's worth, there they are. The Pope's predictions to the year 2000. Hope you all got to hear them. Incidentally, these are in a text form, and you can get a copy of these by calling our bulletin board service.